Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something incredibly profound, the journey of reconstruction after a divorce. Society so often treats divorce as just this mere legal transaction. You sign some papers, and boom, the contract is over. But if you are going through it, or if you're supporting a friend who is, you know for a fact it's vastly more complicated than that. It is a massive emotional rupture. So we're going to look really closely at this specific grieving process, and more importantly, how you can actually use this time of intense loneliness as a space to completely reconstruct your personal identity. Let's get right into it.
Take a look at this truth. Divorce is not just a legal separation. It is an emotional rupture, a grieving process. We really have to begin by validating the immense pain you might be feeling right now. This isn't just a standard, run-of-the-mill breakup. It is literally a little death of the life you had imagined and built for yourself. It's the sudden loss of a routine, a shared project, and sometimes even the loss of a version of yourself. You might be sitting in this profound emptiness, wondering, if I wanted this to end, why on earth do I feel so terrible? Well, the answer is that our minds mourn the bond itself, regardless of whether that bond was actually healthy or not.
So let's move to Section 1, the brain in withdrawal.
To really understand this, we need to look at what's physically happening inside your head. According to attachment psychology, our brains are literally wired to resist this loss. We don't just love someone with our abstract poetic hearts, we love them with our nervous system. Over time, these sentimental relationships generate deep, physical connections through shared daily habits, altered brain chemistry, and really powerful emotional memory. So when that person is suddenly gone, your nervous system essentially goes into shock. Your brain is scrambling, trying to understand where all of its deeply ingrained chemical routines just went.
And understanding this is absolutely crucial. Because right now, you might honestly feel like you're losing your mind. But you aren't going crazy. You are literally experiencing neurological withdrawal symptoms. You might be dealing with intense anxiety, insomnia, obsessive thoughts about your ex, or this overwhelming burning urge to just pick up the phone and call them. Or maybe you're constantly checking old messages. You might even feel this intense desire to run back to the relationship even when logic is screaming at you that it's a terrible idea. Your brain is simply trying to reestablish the chemical baseline it was used to. Recognizing that these symptoms are just a normal, biological reaction is such a critical part of surviving this grief.
But here is the kicker. The pain isn't just about losing the person standing in front of you. Divorce actually acts like a giant magnifying glass for your old wounds. It triggers some really primal, deep-seated fears that you might not have even known were still in there. We're talking about the core fear of abandonment, the sting of rejection, the terror of not being enough, or the absolute dread of being left all alone. Often, the devastation of a divorce feels so huge because it's touching deeply hidden parts of your emotional history, bringing up childhood wounds or dormant insecurities.
Which brings us to Section 2, loneliness as a learning experience. After divorce, one of the absolute hardest psychological steps is learning how to tolerate the loneliness. But we have to completely reframe how we view loneliness. We can't look at it as a penalty or a sign of failure. Instead, we have to see it as a deliberate and deeply necessary cocoon. It's a space designed for you to learn about yourself again. Sure, being alone can be incredibly uncomfortable at first, mostly because it forces you to listen to all those thoughts that used to be drowned out by the noise of your relationship. But this exact quietness allows for something extraordinary, the chance to actually meet yourself again.
Sitting in this quiet space forces us to hit pause. So, the first question to ask yourself is simple, yet kind of daunting. What do I actually like now? Over years of partnership, your tastes inevitably just merge with your partner's, right? You eat what they eat, you watch what they watch, you hang out with their friends. Now is the perfect time to rediscover your own unique, totally uncompromised preferences. The next question to sit with is, what pending dream do I have? Think back for a second. What personal aspirations, career goals, or even wild adventures did you put on the back burner while you were adapting to your partner's life or the collective goals of the marriage? This space of loneliness is honestly the perfect classroom to dust off those deferred dreams and realize, hey, you now have the absolute autonomy to pursue them.
Then comes a really tough but crucial question. What parts of my true self did I leave behind just to keep this relationship afloat? We often adapt and bend for so long that we literally forget how to listen to our own inner voice. So you see, you aren't just mourning the marriage here, you are actively retrieving lost parts of yourself. As this quote perfectly captures, sometimes divorce doesn't destroy your life. It only destroys a version of it that could no longer be sustained. Yes, it hurts profoundly, no doubt about it, but it also frees you. It breaks down a structure that was simply no longer serving your authentic self, clearing the foundation for a much, much healthier reconstruction.
Let's look at Section 3, Breaking Relational Repetition.
As we navigate this new freedom, our minds naturally want simple answers. We want to point fingers and say it was entirely their fault, or we carry the burden and say it was all my fault. But the emotional truth is almost never that simple. Most relationships end because of unhealed wounds, unexpressed needs, and years of accumulated silence. And if we don't understand our own underlying wounds, we risk falling straight into what psychology calls relational repetition. This means we just end up repeating the exact same painful dynamic, the same unhealed wound, just with a completely new person. Same pain, different name.
So to break this cycle, the divorce has to become a classroom. We have to really sit down and ask ourselves, why did I choose this relationship in the first place? What behaviors did I tolerate for way too long? What glaring red flags did I completely ignore? And most importantly, what do I need to heal within myself? Understanding all this doesn't justify any of the harm that was done to you. Instead, it empowers you. It ensures that all this pain wasn't for nothing. It becomes a deeply educational experience before you ever attempt to love again.
And as we process these lessons, we absolutely have to confront the social stigma. After a divorce, so many people walk around feeling this heavy sense of shame, like they're wearing some invisible badge of failure. We have to shed that right now. Divorcing does not mean failing. Honestly, failing would be staying in a life that destroys you just because you're terrified of change. Choosing to leave a destructive situation is incredibly brave. And if you have kids, please remember this. Children do not need married parents to be okay. What they need are emotionally stable adults. They need a home with love, without constant warfare. A healthy divorce is infinitely more protective for a child than a broken, toxic marriage.
Finally, we arrive at Section 4, Reconstructing Your Personal Identity. This is where the real empowerment begins.
For years, your language and your entire mindset were likely plural. You said things like, we decided, our house, our future. But now we have to make this monumental shift from the collective we to the empowered I. It is time to practice saying, I want, I need, and I am. I know, this shift can feel totally terrifying at first, because you are finally stepping out of the shadow of compromise. But it is deeply, deeply necessary. This is where you reclaim your voice and stop adapting your life entirely to someone else's needs.
Because while a divorce might break a shared history, it absolutely does not have to break you. In fact, the most important relationship of your entire life begins right now, the one with yourself. This new relationship is built on learning how to genuinely care for yourself. It's about speaking to your own reflection with deep compassion, forgiving yourself for any perceived mistakes, setting really firm boundaries, and practicing unapologetic self-love. Closing a chapter doesn't erase what you lived, it just clears the necessary space for something new to grow.
And please, as you go through this, give yourself some grace with the pace of your healing. First, just breathe. You do not have to resolve your entire life today. You don't have to heal instantly, and you certainly don't have to pretend to be strong all the time. Healing happens one single day at a time. It's one small step, one more night, one less tear, until eventually, little by little, you come back to yourself. Not as the exact person you were before, but as someone vastly more conscious, stronger, and more authentic.
So I want to leave you with one final, provocative question as you step confidently into this new chapter. Who do I want to be now? This is your true beginning. It's not about frantically trying to fill a void. It's about deliberately and beautifully reconstructing yourself. Because despite the heavy grief you feel right now, you will discover that after a divorce, there is a whole incredible life waiting for you. And very often, it is a much, much better one. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and please take care of yourself out there.